We were 3 courses in at Gavin and Tessa's dinner party. Warm lighting, soft jazz in the background, the kind of evening meant for casual laughter and half-spilled wine stories. Olivia and I sat across from each other, the way we always did at gatherings like this, smiling for the crowd, while every glance between us held something colder. Jesse was cracking up at something trivial, his 4th attempt at sourdough or whatever, and that's when Olivia leaned forward, swirling her wine glass lazily. "Well," she said loud enough for every guest to catch it, "at least Jesse still gets some. It's been what, 2 months for us, Aaron?" She smiled, wide and theatrical, like it was all one big joke. The room paused. Laughter froze mid-air. Glasses stopped mid-toast. Even Tessa's hand lingered over the breadbasket like she wasn't sure if she should reach or retreat. I set my fork down gently. The silence was thick, like someone had just unplugged the mood entirely. I looked at Olivia. She tilted her head slightly, eyebrows raised, acting amused, maybe hoping I'd play along. She underestimated me. 2 months, I said slowly, my voice clear but calm. Right? Because you told me you were in pain. Remember? You said your body wasn't cooperating. That something wasn't right, and you needed time. I respected that. I didn't push. I let you have your space. I smiled, but not kindly. So for you to turn that into a punchline, that's brave, Liv. But maybe not the kind of brave you think it is. Olivia blinked. Her smile faltered, just for a split second. Aaron, it was a joke, she said, laughing nervously now. Relax. People joke about this stuff. No, you joke about this stuff. I corrected, leaning in slightly. You do it when you think it makes you look clever. But tonight, it doesn't. It makes you look cruel. A few people looked away. Jesse reached for his wine again, slower this time. Tessa pressed her lips together. No one was laughing anymore. Olivia crossed her arms. Wow, really? You're going to do this here? You already did, I said, still calm. I'm just finishing the scene you started. Her cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment, but with irritation. That twitch at the corner of her jaw, I knew it well. That was her losing control face. You know what, she snapped. Maybe I wouldn't have to joke about it if there was something to joke about. Maybe if you spent more time being a husband instead of hiding in your little garage with your sketch pads. My little garage is the reason you get to shop at Lily and James like it's your personal closet. I cut in smoothly. Are we really doing this? She hissed. We already are, I replied, folding my hands together. But I get it now, Liv. I really do. That joke? It wasn't for the table. It was a test. She stared at me, caught in her own trap, eyes darting across the table now as the weight of the moment pressed in. I didn't mean to. No, you meant to get a rise out of me, I said, still calm. You just didn't expect the rise to come dressed in facts. Gavin cleared his throat, trying to save face. Hey, maybe we should move on to dessert. But the tension had already rooted itself deep in the center of the table. Olivia's smile was gone now. Just the tight lines of someone who thought she had the upper hand. Until she didn't. She picked up her glass. Didn't say another word. The dinner moved on, but barely. Forks scraped plates without enthusiasm. Conversations stumbled and died mid-sentence. I sat back in my chair, sipping my water, letting the quiet settle. Because tonight wasn't about fighting. It was about letting her realize that the game she thought she was playing, it had changed. We didn't speak on the ride home. She drove, hands gripping the wheel too tightly, knuckles pale in the passing streetlights. I watched the road like a stranger, the Nashville skyline shrinking behind us in the rearview mirror. I knew Olivia was rehearsing. She always did when she'd been caught in front of a crowd. The second we stepped into the house, her heels clicked hard across the floor. She dropped her purse on the bench by the entry, spun around, arms crossed. You really couldn't just take a joke? I leaned against the wall, unbuttoning my collar slowly. Is that what it was? A joke? Yes, Aaron, she snapped. It's called sarcasm. You might want to look it up. I know what sarcasm is, I said. It just works better when it's not weaponized in front of mutual friends. Oh, please. It wasn't that deep. You said, and I quote, I raised a finger. It's been 2 months, not that he's complaining. You know how that sounds, Olivia? She threw up her hands. It was a joke. God, maybe if you weren't so stiff all the time. I nodded slowly, smirking. You're right. Maybe I need social classes. Catch up on how to turn private moments into public punchlines. She froze, then smiled sweetly. Finally, some self-awareness. I tilted my head. You should come with me. Might help with your timing. And tone. That one landed. Her smile twitched, then cracked. She looked away, jaw clenched. Wow, she said softly, almost to herself. I forgot you could be this petty. And I forgot you could be this cruel. That stopped her. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the fridge and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. We stood there in the hallway like two actors who forgot their lines, the air between us charged but motionless. She finally broke the stare, brushing past me toward the bedroom. I'm tired. This is stupid. I followed, slower, not because I wanted to argue, but because I couldn't sit in that silence just yet. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, peeling off her earrings without looking at me. You really embarrassed me tonight. I gave a quiet laugh. You embarrassed yourself. I just didn't cover for you. Her eyes flicked up, sharp now. So that's what this is? Some passive-aggressive rebellion? Because I made one comment? No, I said. This is the moment I stop pretending you respect me. She stood suddenly. Don't be dramatic. I'm being accurate. We stared again, but this time there was no heat, just exhaustion. She looked like she wanted to lash out, but couldn't find the words. I looked like I'd already heard them all. After a moment, she turned away and climbed into bed. I'm not doing this. I nodded. You already did. I walked out of the room and closed the door behind me. Down the hall, the house felt different. Still ours, but colder. Like it had shifted just enough that the furniture didn't quite sit where it used to. I stood in the living room, staring at the muted reflection of myself in the patio glass. We used to argue and recover. But this didn't feel like an argument. It felt like the beginning of something neither of us wanted to name. The chairs in the office didn't squeak. The coffee was too good. And the framed certificates on the wall all hung perfectly level. It was the kind of place where mistakes didn't live long. Your prenup is solid, said the man behind the desk. Gerald Klein. Mid-60s, bow tie, the kind of attorney who didn't blink unless there was a fee involved. Not a crack in it. She walks with what she brought in, and that's it. I exhaled slowly, as if I'd been holding that breath for months. Gerald flipped the folder shut and leaned back. If she wants to fight, she'll spend more than she could win. If she plays smart, she signs and walks away clean. And if she doesn't, he smiled faintly, then she loses both money and time. I nodded, not triumphant. Just clear. Walking out of that building, downtown Nashville glared bright with glass and ambition. People rushed past me with coffees and calls and deadlines. But me? I walked steady. The weight was still there, but now I had a grip on it. By the time I pulled into the driveway that evening, the house looked the same. But I wasn't. I stepped inside. Olivia was in the kitchen, barefoot, wine in hand, scrolling her phone like the day had been hers to waste. She glanced up. You're home late. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. Had an appointment. With who? Someone who helps people like me catch up socially, I said with a smile. Figured it was time I signed up for those classes you recommended. She blinked, then laughed. Oh, you actually took that seriously? She asked, tilting her head. Maybe I did. I replied easily, walking past her to grab a glass of water. You were right. I've got catching up to do. She leaned on the counter, sipping her wine with a little smirk curling at the edge of her lips. Well, maybe there's hope for you after all. Let's hope so. She was gloating now, gently, but unmistakably. That lightness in her tone only ever came out when she thought she'd won something. I'd seen it before. Small victories were her favorite kind. I watched her for a moment. Watched the way she smiled to herself while pretending she wasn't. The wineglass spun between her fingers. She thought she'd finally broken me down. That I was adapting, trying to keep up. And maybe I was. Just not in the way she thought. You didn't have dinner? I asked. Wasn't hungry. Long day. I nodded and poured myself a glass of water. She still hadn't asked where I'd actually been. I waited, just long enough to make it awkward. You know, she added lightly, if you put in a little effort, things don't have to feel so tense. I raised an eyebrow. You think this is about effort? I think it's about you learning how to handle someone like me. I gave her a small, amused nod. Good thing I'm in school now. We stood like that for another few seconds, her thinking she'd restored order, me letting her believe it. And that, right there, was the win. Not yelling, not punishing, just watching her build her little throne out of dust and mirrors, while I held the real power in my back pocket. I finished my water and left the glass in the sink. She stayed behind, humming faintly, pleased with herself. I headed to the bedroom, passing the hallway mirror. Same face, same man, but inside, something fundamental had already left the room, and she hadn't even noticed. The morning was quiet, too quiet for a Thursday. Outside, the early sun painted our backyard in gold, soft through the window panes. The kind of light that made things look peaceful even when they weren't. Olivia was humming under her breath, standing at the stove, stirring something half-heartedly in a pan. Eggs, maybe, or just something to keep her hands busy. I'd watched her all week. Every day since that social class comment, she'd been floating just above smug, like she thought the power dynamic had finally tilted back in her favor. I let her think so. I stood at the kitchen island, placing a plain manila envelope down where she'd see it. "What's that?" she asked without turning around. "Open it," I said calmly. She glanced back, spatula in hand. "Why?" "Because it's addressed to you." Her eyes narrowed. She wiped her hands on a towel and walked over, peeling the flap back slowly. She pulled the papers out, brow furrowing with each turn of the page. Then she stopped, holding the stack in both hands like it might bite her. Her voice cracked the air, sharp and rising. "Are you serious?" I nodded, calm. "Dead serious. These are divorce papers, Aaron." "I know. You're filing?" Her laugh was short and bitter. "You think after one awkward dinner and a few cold nights, this is the answer?" "This isn't about dinner," I said, voice low and even. "It's about respect, or more accurately, the lack of it." She slammed the papers down on the counter, hard enough to rattle the silverware in the drawer below. "You're just giving up? Just like that? After everything?" "You made a joke out of me in front of people we both care about," I replied. "Then came home and made me feel crazy for reacting. That wasn't a one-time mistake, Olivia. That's a pattern." She stepped forward. "So what? You've been planning this. Is that where you've been going lately? To lawyers?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her face twisted. "Unbelievable. You really blindsided me with this." I tapped the envelope. "Page 3. You'll find the prenup clause highlighted." Her eyes dropped to it. "Neither party shall be entitled to financial support nor assets not acquired jointly," she read aloud, voice thinning. "You brought nothing in," I said gently, "and you haven't added to anything since." That was the part that gutted her, the reminder that all the brunches and boutique shopping didn't come from her grind. She'd enjoyed the comforts, sure, but contribution? That had never been her lane. "And you expect me to just sign?" she said, arms folded tight across her chest. "I expect you to read it and realize the only thing more expensive than signing is fighting it." Olivia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The look on her face wasn't just anger. It was disbelief, like she'd just watched the floor disappear beneath her feet. "After everything I gave up for this marriage, you gave up nothing," I said, still measured. "You adjusted to convenience. That's not sacrifice." She stared at me for a long beat, eyes glassy, jaw tight. Then she reached for the pen in the drawer. Hands trembling, she scribbled her name across the bottom of the page. I didn't gloat, didn't thank her, just nodded once and slipped the folder back into the envelope. She backed away, leaning against the counter, arms limp now. "You don't even look angry," she whispered. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm done." Silence wrapped around the room like a heavy fog. I picked up the envelope, turned to leave. Behind me, I heard a single breath, a broken one. But I didn't stop walking. It had been 7 days since Olivia moved out. She left without ceremony, just 2 oversized suitcases, a makeup bag, and a final slam of the front door that made a picture frame rattle in the hallway. I didn't stop her. I didn't even look out the window when her Uber pulled into the driveway. That silence, that was my closure. The house now breathed differently, quieter. The fridge wasn't stocked with imported creamer. The throw pillows on the couch stayed in place. My playlist actually played through without interruption. I wasn't celebrating, but I wasn't grieving either. So when the doorbell rang that Friday evening, I didn't expect company. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door to a familiar face. "Megan," I said, surprised. "Hey." Megan Landry, Olivia's longtime friend. The only one from her circle who ever made an effort to talk to me like I was more than a seat filler at parties. She stood there in black jeans, boots, and a burgundy sweater that matched the bottle of red wine she held up like a peace offering. "Thought you could use this," she said with a small smile. "Heard things got intense." I stepped aside. "You heard right. Come in. She walked in slowly, looking around the house like it was something newly renovated. It's strange not seeing her stuff everywhere, she said. That woman brought throw blankets like most people bring keys. I smirked. You're not wrong. We ended up in the kitchen. I grabbed 2 glasses while she set the wine down and took in the space. Her eyes paused on the now bare countertop where Olivia used to keep her chaotic collection of candles and skincare and random quotes in frames. You doing all right? She asked, genuinely. I poured us each a glass. Better than I expected. Megan took a sip and watched me over the rim of her glass. She didn't exactly tell the whole story. She rarely does, I said. A pause. She told our group that you ambushed her, that you filed without warning, that she was blindsided. She wasn't, I said plainly. Megan looked down at her glass, then back up. She also said the party was humiliating. I nodded. It was. Just not for me. That caught her off guard. A brief smile tugged at her lips. What actually happened? I looked at her calm. She made a joke at my expense. Something personal. In front of everyone. Thought she was being witty. I reminded her of the truth. The mood shifted. She didn't like it. Megan leaned on the island, her gaze curious. And you're just okay with it all? I took a sip, then said, everything unfolded as it should. She stared at me for a moment longer, then laughed, soft, low. You always were quiet, but not stupid. Quiet doesn't mean unaware. Exactly. Her voice was lighter now, the edge of tension fading from the room. She took another sip. You know, I always thought Olivia didn't quite understand who she married. She thought I'd never walk. Megan raised an eyebrow. And you did. No, I said. I planned my exit. She just never saw it coming. There was silence for a beat. Then Megan reached into her purse, pulled out a small notepad, and tore off a sheet. She slid it across the counter. Her number, scribbled in careful script. If you ever need anything, she said, looking me straight in the eye. A hand, a break, or just someone to talk to, call me. I glanced down at the number, then back at her. You sure Olivia wouldn't throw a chair through your window? Megan laughed. She's not the only one allowed to move on. I folded the note and tucked it into my pocket. Noted. She lingered another few minutes before leaving, her goodbye warm but not overplayed. Just before the door shut behind her, she turned back. You look lighter, Aaron. Just so you know. I gave a small smile. Feels that way. The house was quiet again. But this time, it didn't feel empty. 3 weeks passed like the slow crawl of early spring, quiet, cool, uncertain. Then, out of nowhere, I was leveled by something nasty. Fever, chills, joints aching like I'd been thrown down a flight of stairs. At first, I brushed it off. A bad cold. Nothing a hot shower and sleep wouldn't fix. But by day 2, I couldn't stand without bracing against a wall. Groceries were gone. Soup? Out. My head felt like it was packed with bricks, and the idea of driving felt more dangerous than brave. I stared at my phone for an hour before opening Megan's contact. Any chance you're free today? I texted. Don't want to sound dramatic, but I'm fairly certain this flu wants me dead. She replied in under a minute. Stay put. I'm coming. Half an hour later, she was at my door, arms full, paper bags dangling from her wrists like she'd just raided a survival shelter. Don't argue, she said, brushing past me before I could say anything. I brought Gatorade, soup, meds, tea, and real bread. The kind that makes you believe in life again. I tried to protest, but it came out as a hoarse cough. She set the bags down, pulled off her coat, and tied her hair back like she'd done this a dozen times. Within minutes, pots were clinking, broth was simmering, and the house smelled like ginger and garlic instead of sickness and stale blankets. You didn't have to do this, I managed from the couch. I know, she said, glancing over her shoulder. But I wanted to. I watched her for a minute, wrapped in a blanket like a deflated burrito. She moved through my kitchen like she belonged there, not like Olivia, who used it as a stage, but with quiet confidence. When she finally placed a bowl of soup and toast in front of me, I looked up and asked, seriously, why are you doing all this? Megan sat down on the edge of the coffee table, her expression softening. Because you need it. Because you've been carrying yourself like you're fine when you're not. And because I've liked you, Aaron, for a long time. I blinked. What? She shrugged. Even before things went south with Olivia, there was always something about you. Steady. Thoughtful. I could see it in how you listened. How you paid attention to the details no one else noticed. You were married, so I kept my distance. But now, I didn't speak. Just looked at her, fever-hazed but clear enough to know she meant every word. Megan gave a gentle smile. Now, I'm not stepping in just because you're sick. I'm here because I see something real in you. I didn't have the energy for cleverness. I just nodded once. I believe you. She reached for the remote, lowered the lights, and pulled the blanket up over me. Eat, she said, and then sleep. As I leaned back, warm food in my hands and warmth beside me, I realized something unexpected. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone. If you're enjoying the story, please hit the like button. The party was already in full swing when we walked through the door. Music thumping, glasses clinking, someone laughing too loud near the kitchen. Gavin's place was packed wall to wall with familiar faces. I hadn't planned on making an entrance, but the moment Megan slid her hand through the crook of my arm, I knew this night wouldn't go unnoticed. She looked stunning. Not in a loud, look-at-me way. No, Megan didn't do drama. She wore a midnight blue dress that moved like liquid and a smile that made everything else in the room feel like background noise. And me? I felt like I could finally breathe. People turned when they saw us. Heads tilted. Whispers flicked through the room like static. And then I saw her, Olivia. She was by the bar, glass in hand, surrounded by a few of the same people who'd witnessed that dinner party unraveling weeks ago. Her smile froze the second she spotted us. Eyes narrowed just a little. Chin lifted like a reflex. Well, she said as we approached, her voice slick with mock surprise. You clean up nice, Aaron. Must be all those social classes kicking in. I smiled. They really turned things around. Megan squeezed my hand once, silent and steady. Olivia looked her up and down. Megan, didn't realize you were into fixer-uppers. Megan just smiled. Only when they come with a solid foundation. There were a few awkward chuckles from nearby. Olivia's face didn't flinch, but her eyes sharpened. Glad to see you've moved on so fast, she said, feigning sweetness. Then again, maybe not that surprising. He always did need someone more hands-on. Megan leaned in slightly, still smiling. Oh, don't worry. His hands work just fine. Olivia took a long sip of her drink. Well, my ex was bigger anyway. That landed with more venom than she intended. The air tensed. A few people actually turned their heads like they'd misheard. Megan didn't miss a beat. She turned to me, gently pulled me down, and kissed me. Nothing exaggerated, just a slow, steady kiss that said exactly what needed to be said. Then she looked Olivia straight in the eye and laughed lightly. Not true. Your ex-husband's unbeatable. The crowd didn't laugh. They didn't need to. The silence after was louder than any reaction Olivia could have wanted. Her face flushed bright red. She opened her mouth, then closed it, jaw twitching. Without another word, she turned sharply on her heel and stormed toward the door, glass still half full in her hand. The room stayed quiet for a breath too long before the music took over again. Megan exhaled, then looked up at me. Too much. I smiled down at her. Perfect. We drifted back into the party, hand in hand. And as we moved from one conversation to the next, something in me felt lighter. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was just about showing up with someone who saw me, and choosing not to shrink anymore. Tonight wasn't for Olivia. It was for me. The knock came early, just past 8 a.m. I was still in a t-shirt, coffee mug in hand, standing barefoot in the kitchen while sunlight poured through the windows. Megan was upstairs, humming faintly as she got ready. The kind of calm morning I never had with Olivia. No tension, no eggshells. The knocking came again, harder this time. When I opened the door, she was standing there, Olivia. Hair pulled back hastily, no makeup, sweatshirt 2 sizes too big like it was borrowed from somewhere else. Her eyes were glassy, red at the corners. And for the first time in a long time, she looked small. Aaron, she said, voice catching, can I come in? I didn't step aside. She shifted nervously. Please. What do you want, Liv? She looked down, then back up. I was stupid. I panicked, okay? That night at the party, seeing you with her, it got to me. And I've been thinking a lot. We weren't perfect, but maybe we gave up too soon. I took a slow sip of my coffee. She sniffled. I miss us. There is no us, I said gently but firmly. Not anymore. Her lips parted, hurt flashing across her face. You're really not going to even talk about it? You'd throw away 6 years like it meant nothing? I shook my head. I'm not throwing anything away. You did that already. With your words. With your silence. With every joke you made when I needed a partner. Olivia stepped forward. But we can try. We can fix it. I'm willing now, Aaron. Don't let pride keep us from what we had. I met her eyes, quiet for a beat. Then said, No, Liv. That door's closed. She blinked rapidly. You don't mean that. Just then, soft footsteps came down the stairs. Megan appeared in the hallway, barefoot, wearing a pale silk robe that shimmered in the morning light. Her hair was still damp from the shower, tucked behind her ears. No words, just quiet elegance. She walked to my side, rested a hand lightly on my shoulder, and looked Olivia dead in the eye. That smirk, subtle, calm, spoke volumes. Olivia's mouth opened like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. Her apology withered before it reached her tongue. And then, without a word, Megan reached past me and gently closed the door in Olivia's face. Click. I stood still for a second, the weight of what just happened hanging in the silence. Megan looked up at me. Too much. I set my mug down, wrapped an arm around her waist, and pulled her in close. No, I said. Just right. We walked back into the kitchen, the warmth of the morning returning. Outside that door stood the past, confused and shivering. Inside this house, peace. New Year's Eve brought out everyone. Gavin and Tessa's house looked like a Pinterest board had come to life. Fairy lights twisted through indoor plants, gold and white balloons bobbing against the ceiling, and a jazz playlist humming beneath the buzz of small talk and champagne corks. Megan and I arrived late, not to make an entrance, but to avoid the pre-party tension. Still, all eyes found us. She wore a deep green dress that fit like it had been designed just for her, and her hand in mine felt like certainty. The past few months had rewritten everything I thought I knew about peace, about connection, about loyalty. People welcomed us easily. Smiles, warm hugs, even a few quiet affirmations like, "You look happy, man," or "Glad to see you too." And I was. Genuinely. That was, until I saw Olivia. She was by the bar, again, like the ghost of my former life, sipping from a flute of champagne with her back straight and chin high, flanked by a few acquaintances we both used to share. She saw us. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and it didn't take long before the temperature in the room shifted. We were chatting with Jesse and his wife near the fireplace when Olivia's voice rang out across the room, just loud enough to cut through the hum. "Wow," she said, fake laughing. "Guess the bar for decent women is lower than it used to be." The room stilled. Heads turned. I turned. Megan's hand tightened slightly in mine, but her face didn't change. She just looked at Olivia, steady as ever. "You move quick, Megan," Olivia continued, loud now, ignoring the discomfort around her. "I mean, how long did it take? What, a month? 2? Or were you already warming up the seat while we were still married?" Megan let out a slow breath, but said nothing. "I did." "Stop," I said flatly. "Right now." Olivia laughed, bitterness spilling into every syllable. "Oh, come on. Everyone's thinking it. She's not exactly known for taking her time." Jesse's wife stepped forward. "Olivia, that's enough." But Olivia didn't stop. Maybe Aaron doesn't mind being the next name on her list. Maybe he likes playing second to a reputation. That's when it happened. A woman named Renee, quiet, reserved, one of Olivia's own friends from her yoga group, stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "You should be the last person talking about reputations, Liv." Olivia blinked. "Excuse me. You cheated on Aaron. While you were married. Multiple times. Don't stand here pretending you were some faithful saint." The room froze. The sound of laughter died like a candle being snuffed out. I turned fully toward Olivia, but my heart had already dropped. "What?" I asked, my voice low. Olivia's eyes darted from mine to Renee, and for the first time since we split, she looked cornered. "That's not, Renee, that's not yours to say." "Someone needed to say it," Renee said simply. "He didn't know?" I stared at Olivia. "You lied to me. All this time. You lied and still had the audacity to shame the person who stood by me while I was rebuilding my life." "Aaron, no," I said, louder now, and the entire room was watching. "You don't get to explain. You don't get to insult her. You don't even get to talk to me. Aaron, please. I made mistakes, but I respected you. I cut in. Even when we fell apart. I still kept your secrets. I still thought maybe part of you had just gotten lost." I stepped forward, and Megan gently let go of my hand. But now, I said, now I see exactly who you were, and who I never want near me again. Olivia stood frozen, face drained, mascara beginning to smudge under her eyes. She didn't speak. No one did. I turned to the hosts, my voice quiet again. Sorry for the scene. But Gavin just nodded. You didn't make it. Megan stepped to my side again, her presence grounding. As we walked toward the door, I could feel Olivia's stare, desperate and burning. But I didn't look back. Not even once. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars peeking out between strings of fireworks already blooming in the sky. I exhaled deeply, my breath clouding in the air. Megan leaned in gently. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've been in years. She smiled softly and tucked her arm in mine. Then let's go start the new one right. We kept walking, toward our car, toward midnight, toward everything ahead. And behind us, the final page of that chapter finally stayed closed. The drive home was silent at first. The kind of silence that wasn't uncomfortable, but full of things waiting to be said. Megan stared out the passenger window, her hand resting gently on her lap. I kept my eyes on the road, headlights carving through the dark like a slow question. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. But something inside me was unsettled, shifting like sand. When we pulled into the driveway, I killed the engine and left the keys in the ignition. Neither of us moved right away. The porch light glowed softly across the hood of the car. I turned to her. Did you know? Megan didn't pretend to misunderstand. She looked down for a moment, then back up at me, steady. I did, she said quietly. I found out after you filed. I nodded slowly. How? Someone in her circle slipped, she said. It wasn't just rumors. There were messages, pictures. She wasn't discreet. And you didn't tell me? She sighed. No. Why? Her voice was careful, not defensive. Because I saw what you were already going through. You were steady on the outside, but I knew how much it cost you just to keep standing. I didn't want to throw another blow at you while you were still getting your balance. I looked away, out at the quiet street. No traffic, no noise. Just that single, quiet truth between us. You could have told me, I said after a moment. Not accusing, just honest. I could have handled it. I know, she whispered. But I didn't want to see that look on your face any sooner than I had to. I wanted you to heal from what you already knew before you had to face the rest. I nodded again, slow and quiet. She reached out and placed her hand gently over mine. Aaron, I made the call. Maybe it wasn't the right one, but it came from a good place. Not to hide the truth, but to give you a little peace before it hit. I finally met her eyes. You're not her, I said. She swallowed. I hope not. But next time, I added gently. Just tell me the truth from the start. I'd rather bleed clean than be kept in the dark. She nodded, eyes soft but resolute. You have my word. The porch light flickered once, then held. I gave her hand a light squeeze. Come inside. And we did, quietly, together. No fireworks. No drama. Just honesty. And the kind of trust that's still being built, one truth at a time. 6 months passed. Quietly. Kindly. Like water smoothing a stone. Our days weren't filled with fireworks or big moments. They were filled with coffee refills, shared playlists, bare feet on the porch, and dinner conversations that lasted long after the plates were cleared. Megan didn't try to fix me. She just stayed. Some mornings, I'd wake up to find her already in the garden, barefoot in the grass, sunlight tangled in her hair. There'd be dirt on her knees, soft humming from her lips, and this peace in her that always made me stop and just look. Today was one of those mornings. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, watching her kneel beside the rosemary bush, gently brushing the soil with her fingertips like it had feelings. She had no idea I was watching. And maybe that was the part one loved most. How she didn't perform for love. She just was. I used to think love was supposed to be exciting, loud, dramatic. But Megan showed me something quieter, steadier. A version of love that didn't burn me, just warmed me all the way through. We laughed a lot. More than we talked, sometimes. The other night, we got into a 10-minute debate over whether peanut butter belongs in the fridge or pantry. It ended with her smearing some on my cheek and me chasing her around the house with a spoon. Not exactly passion like the movies, but I've never felt closer to someone. She never once brought up Olivia. Never needed to. The past was finished. Sealed. And today, as I leaned against the counter watching her in that quiet slice of morning, I felt it settle deep in my chest. I was ready, not to replace pain with distraction, but to build something new from peace. I reached into the drawer where I'd hidden it. A small velvet box. Simple. No theatrics. Just a ring. And a promise I actually meant this time. Megan looked up suddenly, catching me watching. She smiled, soft, knowing. I smiled back. She waved me outside. And I went, ready for forever. And that was the end of the story. Megan kept Olivia's betrayal from me to protect my peace. But that truth still hit like a freight train when it came out. So now I have to ask you, did she do the right thing? Or would you have told me the truth from the start? Let me know what you would have done in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.